I am doing a cardinal, actually a pair of cardinals in watercolor. I do have my cardinals drawn on the paper, and I wrote drawn some branches and some hollies and different things. This is a little more elaborate than a lot of people may want to try. If you are more advanced, this is something you could do. But if you are just more of a beginner, you may want to do something more simple, as get a template of a bird, maybe do a single one with a branch and maybe some pine needles or something coming off of it. But the method is the same. You'll see how we do the birds and how we do the branch and stuff. So let's get started. And I am using watercolor paints to do this, and I have my water and my brushes all set up. So, all right, let's get started. I want to do a little bit of a background. Not going to be a lot of work on the background. Our star of the painting is our Cardinals. So what I want to do, we got some blues. Let's go in and pick up some of the greens and maybe some of the alizarin crimson, sort of a grayed down version. I want a little more. Let's see. A little more towards the blue. Sort of a, and then I'm gonna kind of spread that out. Just kind of, I don't want to go over the cardinals. I can go over the tree limbs. Those are just going to be a basic brown or type of color, but I want to stay pretty much away from the cardinals. I want them nice and bright. It's just sort of a grayish. Add a little more blue to that. It's basically, if you mix the red, greens, and blues together, you sort of get a grayish black. If you get it enough color, you'll almost go black with it. But I'm still staying more towards the blue side. And then just adding more water. And watch out, let's get around her tail. This is going to be the female cardinal over here. I'm outlining. All right, let's come around. And of course, we're going to have some green in there. You see how it's a little lighter down here. Get up and around her beak. We have some more water. I'm using lots and lots of water on this. And I'm staying towards, a little more towards the blues, like maybe it's a sort of background. You can see a little bit of the blues in there, and it's just kind of a gray day. All right, that's pretty good. Let's pull some of them. Just kind of spread some of that color out even more evenly. Okay, up there. And later we can darken it if we so desire. Let's get around her belly a little bit. All right, that looks good. I'm gonna let that dry just a bit. And then we'll get started on the main feature, our cardinals. Let me see, I'm forming a line here, just kind of lightly go over it. All right. And like I said, we can always, once it's completely dry, we can go over and put another layer over top if we so desire. And if you're seeing any of these lines forming, you can sort of brush a few out. Be careful because you will pick up some of the color like I am here, which is fine. It's all right. Well, we're gonna let that dry a few. Okay, this is fairly dry, so we can start in on our Cardinals. Our Cardinals, and I have the pictures sitting over here. I have a couple of different pictures here of Cardinals I printed off the internet. And I'm not copying, but it's just reference for the different colors in the Cardinal. Okay, so I'm gonna use the smaller pointed tip brush, and I'm going in my brightest red. We're gonna start from the bright red or the lightest colors, and then we can go in and you can see how in the pictures the wings are darker. We'll add the darker colors afterwards. Okay, this is the male here. So we're gonna start here and bring that in. I'm gonna rinse my brush a little bit, tap it off on my paper towel. Still have some paint in it. And then I'm gonna kind of bring that color in. We can keep adding color to brighten it up as we need to, but right now I'm gonna get right out to the tail, tip of this tail. And you can see how this pointed brush works real well. And you can even, if you leave a streak of white here or there, that's fine. And I'm gonna come back in. His belly is quite bright. The paint won't come off, add a little more water. And bring that around and then sort of flow it back. And you can even go over his wing. And we're going to add some dark to the wings. So let's get that. And if some of you are more comfortable with a smaller rounded brush or that, you can use that. But try to use the largest brush that will do the job. Gives you a little more look of just sort of being a little more free with your strokes and stuff. All right. While it's still a little damp, I'm going to take some of the darker reds, the alizarin crimson, and then I'm going to sort of, let's pick up a little more, just more or less on the corner, and start applying a little bit to the wings, add a little water, tap it on my brush, bring that color down. So that just pulls out some of it. We'll go in darker. In fact, we're going to add some almost black lines to it. Okay. Now, she is not as bright. She, in fact, I have a very nice picture of her. And you can see from here, she's almost a slate gray or brownish color with the little red highlights. But she does have a nice red beak, so, and he does too. I'm gonna take, and on his beak, you want a little highlight on the top. We're gonna kind of bring this in the bottom one. And then I'm gonna rinse my brush, sort of dry it off, and kind of bring that up. And it's all right if you get a little bit in there. It's going to be a black area where, and back in, pick up a little bit of my color, Giving that lower lip part of the beak, and right in there a little darker. Okay, and while I got the color, I might as well add some to her bill. All right, she does have some red up here. I'm just kind of streaking it in. Right on her wings, she has some red in there. And on her tail. And we can add more as we go along. There's a little bit on her back and stuff. Now, I'm gonna mix up some of the bright red with some of the greens. I'm gonna use, in fact, I think I'm gonna go into the alizarin crimson. Mix up. And then I'm going to add just a touch of that gray color that we use for the sky. Not much. I don't want much. I want this more towards the brown side. Lots of water. And we're going to start streaking that. Picking her out there. And you can see it's very pale. I'm going to layer it a little more because I want to add some red. I want the red to show through. So I'm keeping her sort of very light right now. And as she dries, I can keep layering more colors. So, in fact, I'm going to just touch a little bit of the red here and underneath here, maybe in here, streak some. All right. Well, those are drying. I'm going to go in with that brown. I'm going to add a little more green, a little more of the alizarin to it, in a different pile. I'm still keeping the lighter one here, but I'm taking some of it and mixing it in a different little tray to darken it. I want this quite dark. I'm even going to add a touch of blue in there, but keep it towards the brown. And then here, now remember, some of our, if it's wintertime, we are going to have snow on it. So if you're going to have snow, then paint under the snow. And you can see how that brown is a lot different. I've added some blue to it. And maybe a little twig you can see coming out here. I'm using the very tip, but some of you, if you're not as good with brushes, you can actually go into this little tiny one, pick up a small one or one of the little twiggy brushes. Oh, here it is. Here's my twiggy brush, and it's just the little fine hairs on it. And you can pick some of that up and to do some of the more finer. You can see how real thin those lines you can get with the twiggy brush. So whatever's more comfortable for you. This one, the larger one, is working fine now. Mostly working on the larger, heavier branches. And it covers a lot quicker. We can have a little branch coming down, maybe here, maybe one here. Oh, maybe one coming up here. Bring that in, maybe one going up there, a couple of twigs coming out here, and we can add more as we go along. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to take the little twiggy brush, and I'm going to go into the greens. Now I want a dark green, so I'll add a little bit of the alizarin crimson to it. Not a lot. I You can add a touch of yellows if it gets too dark, or it needs to go more towards the green. But I've got a nice green. And you can see how you can pull some of these out. We'll pull a lot more after. Right now I'm just kind of get a feel while these are drying. And then we'll build up on that as we go along. Let's see, I think I got some over here too. And some coming down. And you don't have to do this much detail. You can, like I said, that other one, you can just do a single bird with the, and overlap these, with the one branch, and then maybe a couple of these coming out here and there. You can change the color of the background. If you don't like the gray, you can, I've seen them with green backgrounds. I've seen them with blue backgrounds, so. This, I'm not going to do too much over here. These are sort of, maybe a few right in here. So, we can add more as we think about it going along. I'm going to pick up some of the alizarin crimson. And I'm going to do, this is just the bottom part of the berries. Okay, now I'm going to wet my brush and kind of pull that color up. Oops, I got a little too much water. It's not a problem. I'm going to pick up some of the brighter, a little bit of the brighter mixed in with that. And that dark half moon sort of gives it that shadow underneath. So it's not one-dimensional. And you can come back in with some of the darker as well. The top, I'm sort of mixing the two colors. So it's, you got some of the berries there. Let's get some of that lighter color. Get it bright. And you can do it with a little bigger brush. I just happen to have this small one in my hand. All right. I'm going to pick up a little bit of that brown I made for the branches. Bring some very light. Some of the greens. And you can even go over across one or two. All right. And we'll come in and do a lot more detail. So let's go back up. I'm going to take some of my dark colors. I want to get almost a black. Any of your dark colors, mix them all together. Even some of your dark reds. I want to get something that looks so dark it looks black. So it's your reds, your greens, if you got a little dark browns in there. So here, I'm gonna run that across there just to get a little off and around his eye. And then around his beak. Fill that in. You can even just feather it in, it doesn't matter. All right, I'm gonna do his eye. I'm gonna leave a little spot there. And I normally don't use acrylic whites or a white paint on there, but I think I will get my acrylic white paint out and do the little dot in the eye. But we can do that later. All right, back into that dark black. She has that around her face, but hers isn't quite as dark, but it is around the eye. So let's at least get the eye in. And I'm gonna leave, and you see how this one I'm just leaving a little bit of the white of the paper. So now I'm gonna go in with that black into the browns, mix it in. So it isn't quite as dark as that. And you can see it's more of a gray brown here. Not as dark as his. She's sort of a little more camouflaged. Female birds usually are, because when they're nesting, they don't need to be seen on the nest. Okay, so she's got hers in and he's got his nice. In fact, her eye sort of goes back a little further, almost as if she's got a streak back here. Let's pick up a little more of that. Okay. Now his legs are brownish orange. They're not real bright, but they do almost have a little bit of orange into it. So if you take some of the bright red, mix just a little bit of the yellow in it. And if you need to dull it down, you can always add a little touch of that brown. And he's got this one. And we can cover some of that up. Hers sort of comes out. And you don't need a lot of detail, just a hint that it's there, because we're going to cover it up with some of the bristles and some of the berries and stuff. So if you're not real good at doing feet, that's fine. Okay, I'm going to go back. Up the bigger brush. Now we're going to add color. Start working on his color. Up here, it's a little lighter on top where the light's hitting them. And you can see how that bring it around his eye all the way up to the, and be careful if that black is still wet. And you can add just a drop of water and pull that, kind of pull that out. Right down his back. And then on the front, he's super bright. I'm gonna add just a touch of yellow. I don't want it orange. Still want it red, but I want to get it real bright there. Then around, touch of water, and pull that back under his wing. And then his tail, I'm gonna just kind of streak it in a little bit here. I go into my alizarin and start streaking a bit of his wing in. Rinse that brush a little bit. Kind of pull that and then blend it back. And then we're going to go in with some black. And then in the middle, right in here, I'm going to go back with that lighter red right in there. And I'm kind of streaking it in so that it looks almost like feathers. And he's looking pretty good. Let's get his tail at the end here a little better and darker underneath. He's looking pretty good. Now you're gonna need to let that dry before we go in with any more color, and we can keep layering colors. Now I'm gonna go back into my browns that we had on her, and we're gonna darken her. And I need to get my, like I says, we got the picture of her, so we're gonna go use that as a reference. And bring that in. And I'm going over top of the red, but this is a lot of water so that you can see the red is still coming through. In fact, I'm gonna even go over there. I like that. That darkened that area. And nice and smooth on the back. And then underneath, even over top of that red that I put in, bring that right out to the tail. And I'm going to go in with a little bit of that darker brown I made for here and mix a little more, mix it with that brown. And right in here for her wings. Kind of bring that in over the top of it. Okay. And I may even streak a little just under here. Little shadow, since she's leaning down. Now, while that's still wet, I am going to pick up some of the bright red just on the corner, and I'm going to add a little in here. And I'm barely touching. I mean, I'm almost just streaking a little bit in here and there. All right. And how about a little bit on her tail? Her tail seems to have quite a bit. You can see, and like I said, if you're more comfortable using the little twiggy brush, you certainly can. And a little bit under here. We're going to define that, her wing. All right. So she's coming along nice. While it's drying, I'm going to go back, pick up my smaller brush, go into that dark alizarin crimson, and we'll add some more berries here and there, even on over here. And then I'm going to go in with the bright reds and finish. And you can see this little brush is a little bit faster than this. So you use the brush that you're comfortable with. They don't have to be perfectly round. Maybe there's, oh, maybe a couple out here. Let's see, anywhere else, maybe up here, just let's do 3 of them. And back to my twiggy, my darker browns. And basically it's the green and the reds mixed together. Do a couple little branches connecting them. And then I'm going to go back to my greens. And you can do different shades of greens. I mean, And you can play around with that, keep putting as many in as you want. You can see it's a slightly bluer green. It's got a little more blue in it. If it gets too much towards the blue, go pick up a little bit of the yellows, a little bit of that brown mixture we made. You see how you keep overlapping and kind of build them up. Maybe right on top. There's some here. Let's pick up some of the darker. Maybe up here. So you decide how much detail you want in. Alright, I'm going to go in and take my smaller brush here, and that blacks I made for around here. I'm going to add a lot of water. I don't want solid, but I'm going to, right here on his wings, especially on the tip, you're gonna kind of just draw in a little bit. And I've got several pictures here. I've got this one, I've got another one over here. This shows a real nice side view where the black is over here. So use what you have for reference. Like I said, we don't want to copy somebody else's work, but you certainly can find different pictures all over the internet to reference. There's a nice black one that comes up through here. And that comes up into his wings. And let's see, anywhere else? Do we need to do a little more around his face? And you can even streak a little bit out here. Maybe she's got a little more, a little darker. And let's go back in. And she does have the same type of streaking here for her wings. Maybe not quite as dark. And she does have that. She doesn't have as big of a stripe down her tail as he does, but it is a little. She does have some. All right. She's looking pretty good. Let's go. And I just cleaned my brush, and I'm picking up some more of that bright red. He is bright. Now, I'm not coloring the whole area, and I'm sort of doing streaks, putting some feathers in, almost feathering it in, as you can see. And up here, his little, and you might want it nice smooth, so, and I'm just going to streak some right down through there. If you want it a little smoother, you don't want it quite as choppy, just add a little water to your brush, and wherever you want to smooth it out, just sort of with a damp brush drag it through. Now see how bright he's getting? His head is very bright. Let's go in right in here. He's got a very bright, and then I'm going to take some water and just sort of pull that out a little bit. So he's getting brighter and brighter every time I put another coat on. There. So he's looking very good. Like his tail. Oh, let's see. Make his tail a little bit there. I like that better. There. And under here, I'm gonna darken it a little bit. And I think here in the wings. Darken that brown a little bit. Right up here. Pull some of that in. I'm going to just touch the red a little bit and kind of dab it off and just pull a little more of that red in on her head. There, I like that better. Gives her a little more color. So she's looking pretty good. I think she needs a little more red on her beak. And let's pull a little up there. And he needs some more. There. So we've got it looking pretty good. Let's get some of that real bright red on some of these berries up here. Add a little, and we're gonna go in and highlight some of these that have faded out. This is just the bright, straight bright red. All I'm doing is going over top of what we are, maybe getting them a little bit bigger. Maybe we got one up there. Great. I'm gonna go back into my browns. Add a touch of the greens, a touch of the reds to it. Darken it a little bit. And add some more of the branches. Because you can get a lot of branches out there, and it just, all it does is add some detail to the picture. Let's go back in here. You know, and you don't have to do a ton of them, just a few here and there. That looks good. Let's I think his beak got a little too long on there. So, and that's the nice thing about watercolor. A little bit of water, you can sort of erase a few things. There's some staining colors, but let me go back into my black, and I'm just gonna, right where his beak is. And if you're not real good with the brush, you can actually take a pencil and draw that line in. And I'll darken it just enough where they got, you know, separation in the beaks. And I think I'm gonna just do a little bit of more red in here underneath her chin. You can see how you can sort of brush it in. Okay, I think I'm gonna go in and add some more greens. Then I'm gonna get that white for the dot in the eye. Right where her feet are, I'm gonna add some. If you're good at doing details, you can put her feet in so you can see them, but right now, it's easier just to, and the green contrasts with the bright reds. So we're Look like some of those are going behind. And up here we definitely need some more. And let's get some of the darker greens in here, almost an olive green. Just keep mixing different, you know, the browns in with some of the different greens. And if you get it too much, you can see how you can lift that right off. The line gets too wide. There's some of the darker. And if you take black, if you do have black on your palette, mix it with yellow, you get an olive green, believe it or not. I don't normally use black. I make my own by mixing the darker colors. You can see a little bit of yellow here on the top. All right, that's, looks like we're probably at a good point. Let me grab my little white. Just grabbing regular white paint, or if you got white gesso. Just taking a little out of the tube and making sure that it's a point, and basically going in and tapping. You can even put a second small one behind it if you want, but that one is good. You can also take this if you want. And of course, you have to do it a little heavier. You want to put some snow over on top of build some snow up over on some of these branches. You can do that. Not necessary. This looks pretty good, but that's up to you. So you can play around with this. Like I said, you can add the different, more of these leaves. You can add more. I think I'm gonna make that just a little. That was a little bit of the darker alizarin, just giving them a little more of a sharp peak there. All right, so I'm gonna sign this. And oh, let's see, here's a good spot. And get that all in there a little better. And we grab our mat, put it over there, and we got to finish painting.